I always say that I belong to an endangered species called the China optimist. Regardless of who wins the US presidential election, the pressures on China will increase. Many in the West don't understand the Asian century that is coming. And now I have an opportunity to explain Asia to the world. If there's any one country I'm pro, it's pro-Singapore. Clearly, as you know, in my book, I explain how much I owe to Singapore. But I can also understand why this perception arises in Singapore, because they see me battling all the Western figures. And many of these Western figures are writing presenting very distorted pictures of China. When you have a major geopolitical contest, it's natural for one side to try and demonize the other side. But we must remember that in this contest, both sides will put their interests first, and both sides will sacrifice the interests of smaller countries like Singapore. So we must make sure that we don't get involved. We do not take sides. But at the same time, if we can do something to minimize the contest and try to explain to both sides, you're better off avoiding this contest. That's what I'm trying to do with my writings. On the one hand, I'm serving Singapore's interests, and on the other hand, the more thoughtful Americans understand very well that I'm trying to help the United States. So the fact that the doors are still open for me in the major American universities show that the thoughtful Americans understand what I'm trying to do. Right now in China, if you talk to businessmen in China, they're clearly not feeling very confident and optimistic about the future. The fact that business sentiment has dampened is not a good sign. The fact that they've allowed a property bubble to emerge and develop in China is not a good sign. Their main challenge is a geopolitical one, dealing with the United States. But the question is whether or not they have the capacity to deal with these challenges. And this is where I think the United States completely underestimates China. It underestimates the ability of the Chinese people and the Chinese government to find pragmatic solutions to their problems. So at the end of the day, it is now conventional wisdom in the West to be pessimistic about China and its prospects. I always say that I belong to an endangered species called the China optimist. And I remain optimistic for China in the long run. Number one, from an understanding of Chinese history. And Chinese civilization has got its cycles. We know that when Chinese civilization goes down, it can go very, very badly down. But then after hitting rock bottom, Chinese civilization would bounce back as it has in the past. So it would be natural for Chinese civilization to have at least another 100 good years, And so far, we've only seen roughly since Deng Xiaoping's modernization program, only 45 years have passed. So we still have some way to go in terms of Chinese civilizational dynamic. And at the same time, the Chinese Communist Party, and this is a point that no Westerner can say, is one of the most meritocratic institutions in the world. And I would say that now, if you want to see, let's say if you want to compare the American government and the Chinese government and the policy makers, I would say the quality of mind of the Chinese policy makers in many cases is better than the quality of mind of American or even European policy makers, partly because, as you know, in China they still find the best people to serve in government. By the way, I want to emphasize one point. Never underestimate the United States. It's a great society. And you must never write off the United States, which is why the US-China contest is so amazing. So in the case of China, United States has got dramatic strengths, especially in the private sector, when China's got dramatic strengths, especially in governance.